what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another Fly Tying Friday. Tonight we're tying the Mop Fly. It's a super simple pattern, and it's caught a lot of fish for me, especially this past winter. A lot of people don't like the Mop Fly. It's kind of controversial, but you know, if you don't want to use mop material, then you might as well not use chenille on a woolly bugger or anything else. It's all really the same. So it's a great imitation of crane fly larva. It's really good in the winter time especially, and stock trout particularly hammer this thing pretty much year round. So it's pretty cool fly. I do my own little twist with it with adding a squirrel dubbing collar. This dubbing is actually from some gray squirrels I harvested this past fall, and it works really well, makes a nice buggy pattern. So we'll get right into it here. Starting off with a size 10 jig hook with a tungsten bead, 4.5 millimeter tungsten bead. The hook is a Fly Tying Source brand, and we're going to do about 5 wraps of 0.015 lead wire, and just add a little bit of super glue to that, and then we'll just take that and push it right up under the bead. That lead wire will just help keep the bead in place. And once you have that lead wire seated up behind the bead, we're going to go ahead and attach our thread. I'm using 140 UTC in fluorescent green, and you just want to go over top those lead wraps a little bit, and then we'll grab our mop material. I'm using a cream color here. This specific supplier is B&C Fishing Supplies, and they come in all kinds of different colors. Right there's your colors you can get this particular material in. You can also find this material a lot of other places, like hardware stores, things like that. This is off a scrub brush that was found at the mall one day. I came across this particular, and this is a nice like white cream color. Also, I do a micro version of this exact same fly with this glove I found at Tractor Supply, and it's like a gray color, and it's a super small diameter in comparison to, like, here's that other mop laid on top of it just for a size comparison, and it's much smaller and maybe a little less intrusive compared to this particular standard size mop fly. Alright, so all I did was I plucked out some of the mop material to expose the inner core material, and you're gonna have like 4 strands of the core material that's woven that holds all the other mop material in place. So we're gonna go right behind the bead with that and tie down that core material right behind the bead, and then just trim off that excess material there. And one thing I do a little bit differently, a lot of guys would leave it just like this, but if you leave it like this, once this gets waterlogged, this mop material has a lot of weight to it, and it'll foul around the hook a lot like that whenever you're fishing. And so so something I do to prevent that, it doesn't look quite as nice, but if you go ahead and just open spiral wrap this, kind of hold the material down to the hook while you go, and open spiral wrap that back to the bend, and then bring that forward as well, the same way. It ties down that entire body, and you only have the tail that is not attached, and so it fouls a lot less. So next, the final step is to add that collar, and what I do is a split thread technique. So I untwist my thread a little bit, and then I just use my scissors to split apart the thread as close to in half as you can. And this is another reason why I use the thicker 140 thread for this application. If you use a thinner thread, you have really a tough time with it. But now we created basically a super quick dubbing loop. And what I'm going to do is take a nice healthy pinch of squirrel dubbing, and as you can see, this dubbing has a ton of those guard hair, and in there. So that's what we want. We almost want this dubbing to act as a hackle, like a soft hackle around it once we twist it up. So I'll just feed that in there, probably do one more pinch about the same size. And you're gonna lose a little bit of this whenever you spin it up. So don't be afraid to put a good portion of dubbing in here. And once you have that, just close that thread loop. Bring your thread up to just below the dubbing and spin it in a counterclockwise motion. And just, it takes a little bit of spinning, but eventually you'll get a nice rope. And then just, like I said, you're gonna lose some of this, so pick out those hairs that are obviously loose, and then just start wrapping this up behind the bead. Stroke your fibers back as you go. And if you need just a little bit more dubbing, what I do is just take that and kind of fold it around the bead and then lash a little bit more straight down on top. And really the best thing you can do is just let those hairs, as long as they're kind of angling backwards, I don't trim it at all. I just let the guard hairs kind of do their thing. With those long hairs, they move a lot in the water and add a really buggy dimension to this fly. So all that's left is just the whip finish. I usually do one whip finish right behind the bead, and then add some more of that brushable super glue to the thread itself, and do one more whip finish on top of that. And these whip finishes, you want to try to build up a nice little collar. You can use different color threads, or for a more natural look, you can use just a brown or a tan. So I just add a little bit of super glue to the thread itself, and then go ahead and whip finish and just create a nice little green hot spot collar right behind the bead. Tighten that down, and that's the Mop Fly. So like I said, there's infinite different color variations you can use. Go find these cool materials in stores. Just keep your eye out in like the cleaning section, car wash section, stuff like that, and get creative with it. You can, another thing I use a lot is this ice dub as well for a collar instead of the squirrel. You can use that. I like the peacock ice dubbing or that tan ice dubbing I just had. Either one works really well, and yeah, have fun with it. Fish it in the wintertime for sure, and for stock trout, and I'm pretty sure you'll find some success with it. So thanks for tuning in, and thanks for watching. We'll see you next week on another Fly Time Friday.